All right, well, we are just getting word, and we're seeing that the president just arrived on Air Force One at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point in Havelock. This is something that we've been alerting you to. We've known that the president is planning to come to Craven County, ENC, and just take a tour of some of the destruction and damage that was left behind by Hurricane Florence, not just to the service members and that base, but to also survey Craven County as a whole and see what kind of damage we sustained. We are also learning from WTVD that he is expected to take a tour around New Bern after he speaks in Havelock today, Les.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just kind of getting the inside look at some of the damage that we saw there on Cherry Point. Of course, here in Craven County, we had a lot of the flooding, but it was also some wind damage there. We saw those big, kind of portable hangars, if you will. We've walked through them 100 times out of the Cherry Point Air Show, giving us relief from the sun out there in the tarmac. We've seen quite a few of them just twisted up and just mangled as a result of that wind that came through. You can kind of see here the ramp is starting to come down as we're going to get some of the advanced support personnel off of Air Force One. And again, it looks like a fairly big size round table that he's going to be sitting in and talking with.
Right. Now, just to give you some background, the president did get a little bit of a late start today. He was expected to leave the White House around 9 o'clock this morning, and he really didn't leave the White House until 45 minutes later. So that's why he is getting a late start here. But we are told that once he comes out of that airplane, Air Force One, it should be about 5 to 10 minutes before he has some remarks that he's planning to give. And speaking of that roundtable that you mentioned, Les, we were seeing some names around that roundtable on the name plaques. Some of them local names that we recognize, some of them state names we recognize. For instance,
Cooper we saw on there.
Governor Cooper is supposed to be there before he heads to Newport, where he's going to talk to the recovery efforts there and kind of see how Newport as well as Carteret County is faring. But we also saw Jerry Minette. Sheriff Jerry Minette from Craven County, he was there sitting at the round table. We saw Bobby Boyd, New Bern Fire Chief was there as well. So we're seeing a lot of local Craven County leaders there, in addition to some state leaders as well. Now, we do want to let you know that according to sources, after he does speak at Havelock at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, and after he does tour New Bern, we're being told that he is going to kind of survey some of the damage in South Carolina, specifically Myrtle Beach. That's the plan for today. Now, we don't know the specifics of the plan. They like to keep tight-lipped, as you can see, and imagine all the security that's currently there on base right now. In fact, when the plane landed, within that tangled mess of that Harrier and that hangar, rather, not the Harrier, but the hangar that we saw two snipers that were propped up there with their binoculars, just kind of being on the lookout while this is taking place. Now, it does look, is that the president right there?
Yeah, it looks like
that. I believe that is the president. That is the president. He just came out. Yeah, he is now deplaned. It was a little hard to see because of the glare right there, but that is in fact the president. You just saw him give a salute to the service members down there, so he is talking to them. And there's Governor Roy Cooper right there too. That was the very first person that he shook hands with right in that line there. So he's going down the line right now and kind of addressing some of the people there. Now, if I could bring on, we do have BJ Murphy here, and BJ, we were kind of looking at this feed earlier, and you recognize some other faces that were on this feed. Could you kind of talk about those people that you recognized?
I saw Commissioner Steve Troxler, and as you know well, the agriculture community got hit really hard with Florence, so it's good to see him at least involved in this conversation. I also saw State House Majority Leader John Bell, who represents part of Craven County as well, so it's good to see him in the mix. It really is good to see. I see looks like U.S. Senator Tim Scott, if that looks right, from South Carolina. So it's really good when you get local leaders involved in these conversations. He's talking to Congressman Rouser, who represents a large portion of eastern North Carolina there as well. So you really need to have local leadership there as part of these conversations. Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest beside the governor as well. And these guys know all too well the struggles in eastern North Carolina when it comes to rain and flooding. And so it really is nice to see them around a round table with the president.
Yeah, you know the struggle all too well too. I mean, you were the mayor of Kinston when Hurricane Matthew came through, so you kind of know. We were talking this morning about it, the whole FEMA process and having to ramp back up and what a struggle it is. And speaking of which, we also saw some other key people there. The emergency management director, Michael Sprayberry, at least we saw his name tag was there too. It's from North Carolina, so he will be there speaking as well. But yeah, this is quite quite something for a president to be here. You were even mentioning that today, that this is really something to have the president here.
It is, and my hope is to see some conversation about cutting some of the red tape, because when it comes to disasters with government in general, there is naturally a large portion of red tape because there's so many checks and balances in the system. But when it comes to getting not just disaster relief money, but actually flood prevention efforts going, you really got to cut through some of the red tape to actually help the people in need. A friend of mine in Sutherland, North County is a teacher there at South Illinois High School. He is still waiting on Hurricane Matthew relief 23 months later, and his house got flooded again. So it is very frustrating for people who actually live through this and really rely on the system to help them out.
Well, talk a little bit about, you and I were talking earlier about, we've studied the news, we've gotten, Corps of Engineers and all. We know it needs to be done.
Right.
You were talking about that red tape. Expand on that a little bit.
Well, I can tell you that I'm 38. If I were 2 years older, I have lived through or witnessed 21 of the top 24 crests of the Neuse River in Kinston. So we've got to talk about what really is a 100-year flood or 500-year flood, because I've seen almost 21 myself, and I'm not even 40 yet. And so the struggle really is, as long as the triangle in North Carolina continues to grow, and we want it to, we want the state to grow. But as long as that continues to happen, as long as it continues to rain, it's going to continue to flood down east. And New Bern, unfortunately, got a large part of the storm surge. Kinston and Jones County got a large portion of flash flooding, and we're expecting the river to rise more in Kinston as well.
Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, right here you can see the President Donald Trump, walking alongside Governor Roy Cooper there, and you can only imagine what kind of conversation they're having right now. I can imagine it goes something like, hey, we're struggling here. You're going to see what kind of damage firsthand today. We really need whatever help you can give us at this time. I mean, just today we learned that New Bern alone, originally as of Monday, they said it was going to be about $6 million in disaster relief just to get New Bern back on its feet. Well, today, Colleen Roberts said, yeah, that number rose drastically to around $43 million. So, and I have a feeling that's going to be the situation, not only in Craven County, but that's going to be the situation Carteret County. We're just starting to assess the damage there now that the bridge has opened back up. So that number is really going to skyrocket. And I can only imagine what kind of conversation he's trying to sneak in with the president right now before he gets too busy at that round table.
My hope is that these two guys are finally coming to some agreement on how they're going to handle relief money, because as long as these two gentlemen are not on the same page with relief money, we're never going to be able to get to the conversation of actually how to prevent the next major flood. It takes 2 acts of Congress and a minimum of 3 years just to study, just like the Neuse River Basin, for example, and it's another 30 years before we could ever have something like a dam built. So we need to get these two guys on the same page with flood relief so that we can go on to the bigger issue, which is actually preventing the next one.
Yeah, and just to kind of give you a little inside scoop here, President Trump, he did issue that disaster declaration, and the areas that it covers is Beaufort, Brunswick, Carteret, Craven, New Hanover, Onslow, Pamlico, Pender, Robeson, and Sampson County, but they did say others, of course, are expected to be added in this.
Well, I was saying, we saw the flooding with Matthew in Lumberton, North
Lumberton,
Carolina, and
Lenoir.
Lumberton's back under it again here now. So, again, it's within 2 years, like you said, we've had major flooding here in eastern North Carolina.
In fact, in the last 23 months, we've had 2 major hurricanes and an unnamed rain event in April of, I think, 17. All 3 of them are in the top 5 crests of the Neuse River in Kinston, and we're still not even done with that here. So this is a serious issue, and the trouble is we don't want to get numb to this idea of floods. We want some real work done, and we need our leaders at the federal, state, and local delegations to actually sit around the same table and actually get some work done. I'm glad the president's here. We need him here. We need the governor here. But we need our politicians, when they go back to their home bases, to actually do something about it.
Absolutely. There, you see right there, we just, Jerry Manette, Sheriff Jerry Manette for Craven County just shook hands with the president and then with Governor Roy Cooper. So we are seeing some of those local faces going along right now. So the president just kind of making his rounds, it appears, and then he will be seated down where he should, right in the middle. But you were kind of talking about some of the things we're seeing in the background as the rainfall projections, right, Les?
Well, I would say that's the actual accumulations. They've got the plot up there. This will go down as the rainiest tropical system that we've ever had here in eastern North Carolina. I saw, and I forget which day it was, I saw Swansboro 33 inches. There was someplace, was it Elizabethtown, I believe it was, in North Carolina, 34 or 35 inches. That surpasses the 24, almost 25 inches that we saw with Floyd back in 1999. Floyd and Dennis combined, but more so just Floyd there. So again, it's, this is, a natural disaster, but as BJ was saying, that we've got to be able to take care of this here and try to get some preventative mitigation going on.
We definitely need some mitigation. I see this SBA representative, she's very familiar with eastern North Carolina. We've got to have some mitigation here. And the truth is, I'm never going to argue with somebody whether it's a dam or dredging a river or how you handle the roadways or how you handle water runoff. In my opinion, let's throw all the options on the table and let's have a serious conversation. Instead of it taking 3 years, we've already got most of the work done. Let's let it take 6 months, and then let's actually start putting money into actual implementation of all these incredible ideas. We've got some really smart engineers across our state. I'm thinking NC State University, for example, people who know how to handle water runoff and water sewer systems in our communities. And we just need them all working together in the exact same direction, not squabbling over relief money, and actually getting this done. We really need the help.
So what is the issue? Is it state up to federal, or is it local to state? I mean, where is the chain of command kind of falling apart on this?
Well, it literally takes 2 acts of Congress to do this. So you can just imagine it's not just eastern North Carolina. You might have you had fires in fires in California and Midwest. Yeah. It's just one thing, one disaster after another. How do all those pieces fit into what's good policy for the entire country? But we need some real fighters to handle this for us in D.C.
All right, it looks like Donald Trump's actually speaking right now. I don't know if he's mic'd up, if we can actually hear what he has to say. Guys, can we hear what he has to say right now, or is the audio not the best?
We've gone through very dangerous work, and still dangerous, but some of the hard work is taking place right now.
Well, until we get the thumbs up, we're going to just continue talking so that we can see what he has to say. But something else that I noticed as I was reading the disaster declaration. We got it? We got him up? All right, well, let's listen into what President Donald Trump has to say.
Speaking to the governor, some of the flooding is actually epic, hard to believe. And we've seen all the pictures where houses are literally covered beyond the roof. You don't even know there's a house there, and one of those things. Well, the water's starting to go down now finally. But again, I want to thank Governor Cooper. I want to express my gratitude to your Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest, very importantly, and to all of the state and local leaders who have been really incredible partners throughout this response and recovery. There's been a lot of talent, a lot of work and a lot of talent. Without the talent, it doesn't work either. You had a combination of hard work and that great ability. We're joined also by Secretary Nielsen, Administrator McMahon, Director Mulvaney, and FEMA Administrator Long. I want to thank you all. Administrator, great job, incredible job. The planning that went into this is beyond belief, so I just want to thank Secretary and Administrator, really something special. I also want to thank some great friends of mine and some very talented people that love this state. They love all our states, I think we can say, and that's Senator Richard Burr. Where's Richard? Richard, thank you very much. We have great representatives. Senator Thom Tillis, thank you. Where's Tom? Thank you, Tom. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey? What happened? Oh, he's back there. Lindsey. Oh, look at Lindsey. Lindsey, do you want to pull up a chair? What happened to you? We could have. What do you think? Richard, would you let him sit at our table? I don't know. Come on, pull up a chair, Lindsey. But Lindsey's been great. And Tim Scott, where's Tim? Good. I don't know. I feel pretty guilty. Come over here. They have been fantastic, all 4. And we've had a lot of help from Congress, in all fairness, and we're ready and they're ready to do whatever we have to do to make this perfect. And that means, unfortunately, the money will be a lot, but it's going to come as fast as you need it. We're going to take care of everybody. Hurricane Florence was one of the most powerful storms ever to hit the Carolinas, one of the most powerful and devastating storms ever to hit our country. To the families who have lost loved ones, America grieves with you, and our hearts break for you. God bless you. We will never forget your loss. We will never leave your side. We're with you all the way. And to all those impacted by this terrible storm, our entire American family is with you and ready to help, and you will recover. Most importantly, we give thanks to the incredible first responders, including sheriffs, police officers, firefighters, our great Cajun Navy. They're all over the place. I put them up online, and everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. But they put themselves, all of them, in harm's way, and what they've done to save precious lives of our citizens has been nothing short of incredible. Nearly 20,000 federal and military personnel are supporting the response efforts along with Southeast Coast, including brave men and women of North Carolina and the National Guard. Now, of course, we're going to South Carolina right after this, and they have been incredible, and I know you've worked and coordinated very well also, Governor, with South Carolina. It's been a really great partnership. Together with state and local first responders, they've assisted and rescued more than 3,000 people. So we want to thank you. And I will say I've been watching the Coast Guard with all of the helicopters lifting people off rooftops, and it's been an incredible job you've done again. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. More than 1.6 million meals have been delivered to North Carolina, and more than 400,000 are ready in South Carolina as soon as they're requested. So we're standing by with 400,000 meals in South Carolina. Crews have restored power to over 1.2 million customers already in North and South Carolina, and the power is starting to go on as soon as the water goes down. They're meeting the demand incredibly well. So I want to thank the power companies and all of the federal workers, but we have to also thank some of the power companies because they've been very responsive. As soon as that water goes down, for the most part, people have power. In moments of despair, we witness the true character of the American people. So true. Citizens all across our country rally together to rescue the stranded, to protect the innocent, and to restore hope to families who have experienced tremendous and unbearable loss. I want to thank all of the people here today, a very special group of people, very talented group of people, and we love working with you. It's an honor to work with you. We've done a real job, and we've got to continue to do that real job because another phase is coming in right now, and we're going to meet that phase. Thank you. Great job, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much. Let's get back to work. Thank you. Thanks.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm sorry you got on your
It's been really, we have attacked this really
All right, so a lot has come out of this kind of roundtable discussion as you had many people actually speak out in the middle of this. Just some things that we gathered is that there's 10,000 people still in shelters right now at this time. And a couple quotes from Governor Roy Cooper: "We are in the process of beginning to get our feet under us," which I thought was really powerful because, I mean, that is what we are essentially doing, just kind of evaluating everything and figuring out where we go from here.
And it's going to be a long haul. That's what he was also trying to convey there, that we're going to be doing this for weeks and months to come.
He also said, "We have never seen one like this," of course referring to Hurricane Florence. "This one is epic. It's dangerous." And then something else he said: "Help us cut the red tape. We're going to need your help." And that's a notion that former mayor with us right here, BJ Murphy, has been saying all along.
Yeah, it really, the question was earlier I saw was about, you got a Republican president, 2 Republican senators, and a Democratic administration here in the state of North Carolina. When it comes to disasters, who really cares? And it really is more about getting relief getting people out of harm's way as soon as possible, and there is no party affiliation when they go to your house to pick you up. And so what needs to happen is these dialogues don't need to be just for show for TVs, because they look really good with that jet behind them, but this needs to happen back in the White House. It needs to happen in the halls of Congress. It needs to happen in the General Assembly and the governor's mansion as well, where both sides sit together. You know what? I say just lock the door, take the phones away, and slide some pizza under the door till they figure it all out.
Slide some pizza under the door.
I like that idea.
Yeah. Earlier when talking about FEMA, you said people need to chain themselves to the doors in order to cut the red tape.
Yeah, I really did.
Your references are funny.
I said, I can't believe I promoted the idea that someone would chain themselves to a politician's office, but there's nobody that is going to fight for you more than you. Now, I mean, love the president, love the governor, love them all, but there was nobody. When it comes down to the politicians, the administrators, the red tape is in all the bureaucracy that's between them and the actual work that gets done. That is where people, when they have to call a 1-800 number or get on a mobile app or submit a form online or have somebody come to the house, that is where the rubber meets the road, and that is the process that is so frustrating for our citizens.
Well, it's like you and I were just looking at the new forecast projections for Kinston, 25.6 feet. That puts back under the Hampton Inn, but the new sports shop that 2 years ago had already been underwater and had quickly got back and recovered from. But again, within 2 years, now they're going under again.
It's just a very frustrating game, and it's really not a game. It's just a very frustrating process, because we know it's going to. I promise you, in the next week, you're probably going to forecast rain, right? It will rain again. The rivers will flood again. The creeks will rise again. And we just hope that by having Air Force One, the president here, and the governor and the senators and these congressmen all together, that this creates the kind of dialogue that actually gets action, that takes action, so that when it comes to friends on the southern end of the county or friends in Jones County who still don't have power and still don't have running water,
Who aren't able to see this press conference.
Right.
In fact, someone complained to me yesterday that my organization, News is doing so many lives that maybe some people who could get
Facebook Live. Yeah, that's really the way of the future, especially right now when you have no power.
But the concern was maybe you're doing so many Facebook Lives, other people who need the signal can't get it. And I'm going, how do you get information out? And it really is just a very trying time. And there's people that really need to help, and we hope that it's coming.
Absolutely. And I mean, two big leaders just this week alone have now visited Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. I mean, Monday you had Commandant of the Marine Corps General Robert Neller was there too, just talking to some of the service members, surveying the damage that was there too. So it looks like the president did step into that Suburban right there. We're keeping a close eye on as I guess the motorcade is what you would say, is kind of making its way around Cherry Point. This is probably where that tour portion that we were talking about begins, when they're going to kind of see what kind of damage the base itself sustained during this time. Now, we do want to let you know a few other comments that came out of that roundtable discussion there. Of course, you saw Senator Tom Tillis was there, and he was saying, the next big step is the funding, the money, where we're going to get that. He also said this is when North Carolina America is at its best, and I really like that quote. I think it really resonated, because among all the chaos, as we've been saying, we've really seen the camaraderie. We've seen the good that has come out of not only Craven County, out of Carteret County, out of Morehead City. It's like we're all, Eastern North Carolina is one giant family, and we're all in this together. And just, I really think that quote really resonated.
Yeah, it's that neighbor that's got a boat or has a buddy that has a boat that's going to come over and be able to come over and get you out of your house, as opposed to waiting an hour or so for, FEMA or any swiftwater rescue team to get there. That's what Eastern North Carolina is all about.
And one other thing that we wanted to point out, you were mentioning the head of the SBA. She was there, of course, Linda McMahon, and she's got some pretty strong ties to our area, in fact, and that was something that she mentioned herself. I mean, she used to go to New Bern High School, and she's very familiar with that base, because her parents were employees there a long time ago, so she's familiar with the area of Craven County as a whole. So I'm sure she's taken a direct impact coming back for the first time in I don't know how long she's been here, but kind of seeing some things. Certainly that didn't look the same way when she left it. And it's going to be a very shock and awe moment.
And an ECU alum as well, so she I'm sure she traveled probably traveled back and forth 43 through Kinston 70 and all that kind of stuff, and knows exactly what we're going to be facing now with this second surge of the water coming down the Neuse.
Now, I have to say, one thing I thought was very interesting. You saw a lot of people around that round table, as we were mentioning. You saw the mayor of Morehead City, and we are learning that he is the president. President Donald Trump is apparently supposed to make a tour of New Bern, but we did not see Mayor Dana Outlaw at that round table. Now, I don't know if he was in that room, if he did get an invite, but just the fact that he wasn't sitting at that table, maybe they didn't have enough room, couldn't find a big enough table. There's a lot of people probably that wanted their seat there to just kind of talk to the president directly to let them know about their concerns and their worries. But that was just one thing that I kind of thought was interesting. But of course, Morehead City did also get a lot of devastation and destruction. So.
Yeah, I was saying, and that's what we need to keep in mind. You know, it's all of eastern North Carolina here. You know, we're looking in around Wilmington. They were talked about Lumberton underwater right now. Kinston's going to be back underwater here later this week, going into the weekend. So, you know, this is all of eastern Carolina, basically, you know, south of Highway 264, east of I-95, and even along 95. Parts of I-95 are closed going down into South Carolina as a result of this impact that we've been seeing here now. It's Wednesday. You know, this time last week, we were bracing for that storm. This is when that forecast track changed last Wednesday morning. Instead of plowing right into us as the Cat 4, it was going to be that meandering down the coast, very slow movement, and that's when we started seeing those rainfall totals really start to crank up with the potential, as we've seen verified, over 35 inches.
And one thing I'll add, Les, is that we, state of North Carolina, and you talked about neighbors, helping neighbors, et cetera, a while ago, but we're really good at preparing for these storms. We've gotten kind of used to it. We got a lot of practice on it.
Unfortunately, we've
right?
gotten used to
We
it.
basically stick out in the middle of the ocean. I mean, what do you figure?
Yeah, we're just out there. But the real issue is what happens after the storm is over. And that is where the long process of getting your life back to normal. We've got such a high standard of living. Even if you're poor in this country compared to other third world countries, you've got it great. It really, when you start putting life in perspective, so when people go 3, 4, 5 days without power here, we kind of get a little antsy and upset and hangry, you know. But even once that is restored and you've got the house and you can sleep, there's still so many other things in your life that get just torn apart, and it really is just devastating. We've been very blessed to have as little, although we did have some loss of life, to have as little loss of life as we've had in past storms. But one loss of life is one too many.
Yeah, speaking of that loss of life, I actually had an update here. If you bear with me as I flip through some of my notes, we now know that the death toll has risen to 37, 27 alone in North Carolina, and in Duplin County, 6 of those too. So we know that Duplin, we do have some crews going to Duplin today to kind of survey the damage there as well. But yeah, any loss of life is way too much. And 37 between Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, that's quite a bit.
One thing I'll add to that is that a lot of times the loss of life, certainly low-lying areas, flash flooding is a major issue. But just in Kinston, for example, we're expecting another 2 feet of the water to rise. When you see an orange barricade, don't go around it. It really is that simple. And a lot of people think they can make it, and they try to do it. And that's when the water picks them up and moves the car over, and they get trapped, and no one's there to help them. And that is really a lot of the loss of life that you see happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, you know, it doesn't matter. I always talked about it when I was up in Pennsylvania covering snowstorms. We know, I've got an SUV, I'll be able to go through it. Well, you know, water is water. A 2 feet of running water can, you know, your tires got air in them that can pick that vehicle up and move it off of the roadway here. Even a half a foot to a foot moves an average car off of there. So we always keep talking about turn around, don't drown. You know, there's reasons why. One, we made it a simple, you know, saying to be able to remember, but also, you know, keep in mind, you may be looking ahead there and you think, oh, well, you know, I know that culvert or that little bridge is always there, and all of a sudden you go in, the culvert's been disappeared. Now all of a sudden, instead of going through, you know, 1 inch to 2 inches of water, now you're 6 feet deep in water, and that's where we see a lot of people losing life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Les.
It's totally preventable.
Totally preventable. Well, right now we are giving you that live look. As you can see, Air Force One, I believe we're showing you, because the president is doing and taking that tour around a Marine Corps Air Station, Cherry Point, right now in Havelock. Now, we have been told that he will be doing a tour around New Bern, so we do want to let you know, as we prepare to send you back to your regularly scheduled programming, that we might be coming back live on air if he does in fact do that tour around New Bern. So stay tuned. We will keep you updated on the president's whereabouts in eastern North Carolina. First off, BJ Murphy, thank you so much for being with us during all of this and really providing your insights into all of this. It was a good perspective to kind of hear from you.
Well, I appreciate it, and want to say thank you to Channel 12. I know y'all been through a lot as a big family this week, and I really want to say y'all done a great job of getting this information and get these stories out to the public because they really need to hear it.
Well, thank you again. Thank you very much for being here. Unfortunately, you've been through this one too many times.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here. Les, I see you all the time, but I'm going to thank you anyway. All right. Well, we are going to return you to your regular scheduled programming. Make sure you keep up to date by downloading our app, our news app, as well as our Storm Track 12 app. Even though we have beautiful blue skies happening right now, you can still download that app. And also follow us on our Facebook page. We're keeping you up to date. We have multiple crews out, and a lot of those crews are following President Donald Trump as he tours eastern North Carolina.